You're about to make a critical mistake in your fall garden that, honestly, most people just overlook. While you're busy planning for next season, there are 3 underestimated cover crops that promise benefits, but, well, deliver hidden problems. These seemingly innocent choices are, silently undermining your soil, creating more work for you, and potentially setting back your gardening goals by months. Today, we're diving deep into the cover crops that sound great on paper but can become your gardening nightmare in reality. The cover crop industry has done an excellent job of marketing certain varieties as foolproof solutions for fall gardening. The promise is simple: scatter some seeds, let winter do the work, and emerge in spring with healthier soil. Unfortunately, this set-it-and-forget-it mentality is exactly where many gardeners go wrong. The truth is that cover cropping requires just as much strategic thinking as any other aspect of garden planning. Many popular fall cover crops are being recommended without considering your specific garden conditions, climate zone, or long-term soil goals. What works beautifully in a commercial farming operation or in someone else's garden can become a disaster in yours. The problem isn't necessarily with the cover crops themselves, but rather with the blanket recommendations that ignore the nuanced needs of different garden situations. The misconception that cover crops are universally beneficial has led to some seriously problematic choices being made in home gardens across the country. These choices often seem logical at first glance, which is exactly what makes them so dangerous. By the time you realize the mistake, you're already dealing with the consequences in your spring garden. Cover crop number 1, crimson clover, sometimes called the nitrogen thief. Crimson clover consistently appears on, those best fall cover crops lists. It's praised for its nitrogen-fixing abilities and, honestly, those attractive red blooms. However, this seemingly perfect legume can actually become a nitrogen thief in many home garden situations, leaving your soil more depleted than when you started. The problem lies in how crimson clover actually fixes nitrogen. Like all legumes, it relies on rhizobia bacteria to convert atmospheric nitrogen into plant-available forms. But here's what the simplified recommendations don't tell you. This process requires specific soil conditions, adequate moisture, and the right bacterial partners. In many home gardens, especially those with compacted soil or inconsistent watering, the nitrogen fixation process is, severely compromised. When crimson clover can't effectively fix nitrogen, it becomes just another plant competing for nutrients in your soil. Even worse, because it's a vigorous grower, it can actually deplete existing soil nitrogen more rapidly than slower-growing alternatives. The lush green growth you see might look healthy, but it's often being fueled by mining your soil's existing nutrient reserves rather than adding new nitrogen. The timing of crimson clover's life cycle creates another significant problem. It often continues growing actively well into spring, competing directly with your early vegetable plantings for nutrients and water. So when you finally terminate it, the decomposition process can actually tie up soil nitrogen for a while, right when your spring crops might need it the most. Instead of using crimson clover, you might want to consider Austrian winter peas or even hairy vetch, especially if you're really set on using a nitrogen-fixing legume. These alternatives are generally more reliable nitrogen fixers when it's cooler, and they also have more predictable timing for spring termination. But honestly, even better, you could try winter rye or winter wheat, since they provide excellent soil protection without making that false promise of nitrogen fixation that sometimes just doesn't happen. Cover crop number 2 is annual ryegrass, often called the overwintering weed magnet. Annual ryegrass is frequently recommended as an ideal fall cover crop because it establishes quickly and provides really good ground coverage through the winter. What most gardeners don't realize until it's honestly too late is that annual ryegrass can actually make your weed problems significantly worse, turning your carefully planned cover crop into, well, a weed nursery. The issue actually stems from annual ryegrass's growth habit and root system. Unlike deeper-rooted cover crops that can outcompete weeds by accessing resources more effectively, annual ryegrass creates a shallow, dense mat that, unfortunately, provides perfect germination conditions for weed seeds. Its fibrous root system doesn't penetrate deeply enough to break up compacted soil layers, so it essentially creates a comfortable upper soil environment where weed seeds can thrive alongside the grass. Annual ryegrass also has an unfortunate tendency to go to seed earlier than expected, especially during mild winter periods or early spring warm spells. When this happens, you're not just dealing with terminating your cover crop, you're dealing with preventing it from becoming a persistent weed itself. The seed heads can mature surprisingly quickly, and once they shatter, you'll be pulling volunteer ryegrass from your garden beds for years to come. The shallow root system that makes annual ryegrass easy to establish also makes it less effective at preventing soil erosion than advertised. During heavy winter rains or spring snowmelt, the shallow roots just can't provide the soil stabilization that deeper-rooted alternatives offer. For reliable weed suppression and soil protection, winter wheat or winter barley are far superior choices. These grains establish deep root systems that genuinely outcompete weeds while providing excellent soil coverage. Cover crop number 3. Winter radishes. The springtime nightmare fuel. Winter radishes, including daikon and tillage radishes, have gained popularity as biodrilling cover crops that can break through hardpan and improve soil structure. While this sounds incredibly appealing, especially for gardeners dealing with compacted soil, winter radishes can create a springtime management nightmare that makes them unsuitable for most home garden situations. The primary problem with winter radishes is their unpredictable spring behavior. In theory, these radishes are supposed to winter kill in most climates, leaving behind root channels that improve drainage and soil structure. In reality, winter temperatures are becoming less predictable, and many gardeners find their radishes surviving the winter and bolting to seed before they can be terminated. When winter radishes don't winter kill as expected, they create these massive, aggressive root systems that can be, honestly, nearly impossible to remove. The taproots can grow several feet deep and become really woody and stubborn. Trying to remove them mechanically often results in breaking the roots, leaving pieces behind that, unfortunately, will regrow. Even when you think you've successfully terminated them, pieces of root left in the soil can sprout new plants weeks later. The decomposition process of winter radishes creates another significant challenge. When these large fleshy roots break down, they can create anaerobic conditions in the soil and produce sulfur compounds that, well, give off unpleasant odors. This decomposition can also temporarily alter soil pH and nutrient availability in unpredictable ways, potentially affecting early spring plantings. Perhaps most problematically, winter radishes in the brassica family can harbor clubroot and other soil-borne diseases that affect related crops. If you're planning to grow cabbage, broccoli, kale, or other brassicas in your spring garden, using winter radishes as a cover crop can actually increase disease pressure rather than improving your soil health. For genuine soil improvement without the management headaches, consider crimson clover in appropriate climates, or better yet, a mixture of winter wheat and crimson clover that provides both ground coverage and gradual nutrient release. If soil compaction is your primary concern, buckwheat planted earlier in fall and allowed to winter kill naturally provides soil improvement without the spring management challenges. Your fall cover crop success blueprint. Selecting the right cover crop for your specific situation requires honest assessment of your garden's conditions, your management capabilities, and your spring planting timeline. The most important consideration is matching the cover crop's life cycle to your garden's schedule, not just choosing something because it worked well for someone else. Consider your climate zone's typical winter patterns and spring weather variability. A cover crop that works perfectly in a consistently cold winter climate may become problematic in areas with unpredictable temperature swings. Similarly, cover crops that require specific termination timing may not be suitable if your spring schedule is unpredictable or if you travel frequently during the critical transition period. Soil type really plays a crucial role in cover crop success, and honestly, it's something that's often overlooked in general recommendations. Clay soils, sandy soils, and well-draining loams all interact differently with various cover crops. What builds soil in one situation can actually create problems in another, so understanding your specific soil characteristics is absolutely essential for making good choices. The key to successful cover cropping is choosing varieties that genuinely match your garden's needs and your management style, rather than just following generic recommendations that might not apply to your particular situation. So, it's a good idea to start with simpler, more predictable options, and then gradually experiment with more complex cover cropping strategies as you gain experience with what works in your particular garden environment. Are you ready to transform your fall gardening strategy? Go ahead and subscribe to Smart Garden for more evidence-based gardening insights that can save you time, money, and, honestly, a lot of frustration. And hey, share this guide with fellow gardeners who might be making these same costly cover crop mistakes. Your gardening community will definitely thank you for helping them avoid these common pitfalls that can set back spring gardens for months.